Excellent job.
Heck yeah.
Well
Heck
done.
yeah.
Ladies
Freedom.
and gentlemen,
Well done.
PFT commenter.
If you haven't discovered it yet, this is our Top Gun recap episode. We're not going to do full recap. We'll wait, I think, a weekend.
Yeah, we got to give everybody a chance.
It would be very ugly of
Thank you,
us to do it.
PFT.
But we are going to talk a little bit about Top Gun, just on our experiences, but we won't give any spoilers away from the movie. We'll try our best.
Can we just talk about the experience of going?
Yeah,
Yes,
why don't we
we'll
talk
definitely
about that?
talk about
I think
the
that's more
experience of
prevalent.
going. We're going to do that. Today we have 5 rounds in the magazine. Round number 1, easily one of the best parts about joining the military is the friends you meet along the way, which leads us to an obvious question. Can you identify a friend simply by tasting their piss? Round number 2, sound the lunk alarm. A bodybuilder in Florida is set to do his sets in federal prison after reporting that he could only squat 10 pounds at the VA and then bragging about his 500-pound squats at a Planet Fitness. Round number 3, update the safety brief. Kate sat down with some puddle hoppers to talk about what the Coast Guard really does during this, which is
National Boat Safety Week.
And I think that some people think because it's Memorial Day that we're doing a safety brief thing like we did last year when we had the ads about trains killing people.
Yes.
Right.
Not what we're doing. We're
No.
just very interested in boater safety.
No,
Yes.
it's because we posted this badass video on our ZBT Instagram, and I was like, I need to know more about this. It was a Coast Guard boat. Somebody from the Coast Guard reached out, and we said, let's go. Next thing you know,
Do you guys
it's
know
Boat
I have
Safety Week.
I have my boating license?
No.
I didn't know that. You got it a couple years ago.
Yep.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You're
Well,
both boat pilots.
Officially Captain Cons.
Yes.
Wow.
I was officially, then unofficially, now back to officially as of last year.
Oh, I've driven crabbing boats down the Jersey Shore.
Same thing.
I don't like to brag about it, but
That was kind of braggy,
It
though.
was
Yeah, you
a
did.
little
A
bit.
little braggadocious.
Yeah.
Round number 4, the Russian version of Maverick comes out of retirement in his 60s to fly again. Spoiler alert, he gets shot down. And finally, round number 5 with Memorial Day here, it's a fitting time that the names of the bases that are named after Confederate traitors are getting replaced with honorable men and women, or at least some concept as well. That was, to me, that was the weirdest part, is that we're naming all the bases after people like Hal Moore and Medal of Honor recipients. And then also Liberty. Like, they ran out. They're like,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like,
got
that we
9.
used up all our allotment.
we got 9 that are named after people. Well, what's one more?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
Liberty.
guess that's it for the people we know who are cool. Valor.
Who have done anything. We'll get into it.
Camp JJ did tie buckle.
Yep, and all that is brought to you by our good friends at Whistle Pig. They're the presenting partner of this podcast, and they make the best rye whiskey in the biz. It's bold, it's flavorful, it's spicy. It's aged 6 years and has a high 96.56 proof. To give you an idea, your typical bottom shelf whiskey, which this is not, your bottom shelf whiskey will be at around 40% or 80 proof. This is 96.5 proof, so it's going to be stronger, it's going to be better, it's going to taste better. How do you drink your Whistle Pig? My friend, I drink it with a little bit of ice, and that's it. 1 cube. One cube, everybody knows the rules.
I do the big sphere cube.
That's what I need to get. 'Cause
Yes.
I do mine on
I
ice as well,
drink.
but
Sometimes the spear cube's troublesome for me because I feel like if I don't drink it quickly, then all of that cube is going to melt into the whiskey, and then it's going to be too much.
I think you would have to take a very long time to drink your Whistle Pig for that to occur.
Well, what if I'm trying to impress somebody by how slow of a sipper I am?
wow, that's a great point.
I suppose.
That's why I drink
Because
the
I'm
rye
more
smash.
impressed if somebody orders a whiskey and they just absolutely nurse it. I'm like, this dude.
Yeah, but also too, like, you got to think, it's not like you're getting poured a pint of beer. When you get poured, it's like 1 or 2 fingers. There's not that much liquid there. So to nurse that, I think, to your point, does take some skill. But I don't think you need to worry that an actual huge sphere ice cube is going to melt.
Either way, I only drink Whistle Pig whiskey now. It's fantastic. I have lots of their bottles at my house, and it's wonderful. You can get it too at shop.whistlepigwhiskey.com or at a local retailer. Somebody had been hitting me up for my pronunciation of realtor. Realtor.
Those are
Realtor.
two very different
Did I
things.
say realtor before?
A retailer
Somebody
is-
said I said realtor before.
I'm sure you
When
did.
you meant retailer?
Yeah.
Oh,
You might have
sure
just
you
had
did.
a slip
Absolutely
there.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah, classic little misspeak goof, and that's fine. Go to get some Whistle Pig. All right, so earlier this week, we had the opportunity, thanks to our friends at Paul Soldier from Task and Purpose, and Kyle passed it along to us as well, and then We Are the Mighty. They invited us to be their guest at the USS Intrepid for the screening of Top Gun 2 Maverick.
Yeah.
Top Gun Maverick.
So to go see Top Gun 2 on an aircraft carrier, inside of it, and at first there was this cocktail hour, and so you're walking around, blah, blah. I was very excited for this. And to see it surrounded by other troops, I knew was going to be a good time.
To me, I was so stoked because I didn't know that. I thought it was going to be like media members and people who cover.
That's what I thought too.
Like, military stuff, but it was primarily when we walked in. It was clear that it was a military event, that they were doing like a military screening. There's people in their like service uniforms. There's people there were pilots there's people that worked in supply. They didn't just have like officers and high level people. They had troops on the ground, like the very junior troops, and then there were some majors and some lieutenant colonels, some 05s, but most of them were junior troops.
Yes.
But before we got there,
Oh my
Before we got
goodness.
there.
So let me set the scene a little bit before we get into it. So Texas has this program called the Compassionate Use Program, and I've talked about it a couple times on the show. And essentially, what it is, it's the precursor for a medical marijuana program in Texas. And there's only a certain number of ailments that you can have where you qualify. PTSD and traumatic brain injury are one. I have those. So I have the Compassionate Use program in Texas where they don't give you any marijuana flower or anything like that. It's edibles, and that's essentially it.
And do they mail them to
you?
or
you go
they're-
pick them up.
Okay, there's
it's a
a
weird
hard
spot that I
standing
got to go
building.
pick it up, but
Okay.
you just go pick it up, but it's
It's an
prescribed
alley
to you.
behind a McDonald's, oddly enough.
So I have those, and they come in a 10 milligram and a 15 milligram dosage.
Sure.
Kate was like, I'll do one.
It was an evening where I came into work, Pat had the baby that night. Like, I knew I wasn't going to be home until like 11 at night. But this was going to be a whole evening. I don't get to go out very often.
Sure.
So I was like, oh, I'm going to have a few drinks. And Jeff had these edibles. He's like, have an edible. And we go across the street to a bar to have a drink before we head up to the Intrepid. And Chaps hands me the edible. And I say, well, I normally don't do, like, I can't remember the last time I even had an edible. I'm just going to do half. And that's 5 milligrams.
I've never had an edible.
He said to me,
Yeah.
oh, 5, you wouldn't even feel. Take the 10, you won't even feel the 5. So I was like, okay, I take the edible.
Yes, you did.
Everything's fine. I have a Magners on ice. I'm just hanging out because they didn't have Whistle Pig.
True.
Anyways, we head over. We get in the cab and we're heading over to the thing, and I start to feel a little floaty. I start to think, oh man, warm fuzzies
My feet are heavy.
are spreading around. We get out of the vehicle. I look at the Intrepid, and all of a sudden, I'm like, oh no. We start walking towards it.
No, wait, hold on. So we get out of the Uber, and Kate stands there, and she looks me, and her very classic Kate voice, I'm feeling a little...
Yeah.
feeling a little... Mama's feeling a little... Whoa!
As soon as when you're with your buddies and like you're in 5th grade and it's a sleepover and it's 2 a.m.
Yes.
and you're all
Just
delirious
giggling.
and you can't
Yes.
stop giggling.
Yes.
Every time I saw Chaps out of the corner of my eye,
it
anytime
was a
I
lot.
heard his voice, I couldn't keep my shit together. And then he would laugh, and then I would laugh, and then you guys would all laugh, and I was beside myself. We take this elevator. Now I'm at this point high as shit.
Her eyes are huge.
My eyes are huge, and they were red.
Red.
They were so red. We have to take this elevator and enter an aircraft carrier. We're in the elevator, and our buddy Fights came along too, and he's wearing these grungy, dirty shoes, and he's standing.
That he designed. Like, he's wearing the Sad Boy Season shoes, because I think that's important. That's the only reason why he was given a compliment for those shoes.
Yes.
Right.
And they were filthy.
But they were
Normally they
filthy.
come white.
Right.
His feet are like 2 inches next to a sailor wearing the all whites, so
Yes.
their shoes are sparkling white.
And he looks immaculate. The
He
sailor
looks
looks
immaculate, wonderful. And I point at Fights and I say, man, but I really like your shoes. And then my eyes dart to the white shoes of the sailor. I'm like, that guy's gonna think I'm ripping on his clean
Which
shoes
is
because I
insane.
complimented
That's so-
Fights' dirty shoes, and I started to panic. I'm like, oh no. Now I'm in full panic mode. I can hear myself doing that weird laugh thing.
Yes.
The elevator opens. It's time to go inside. I'm like, that went terrible. And now I have to walk into a ship full of military personnel wearing dress uniforms, high ranks, low ranks, whatever. I was like, I cannot fucking handle this.
Yeah, and
I'm
that's when
gonna
I
die.
really got the sense that,
We're
something's
in
going on
trouble.
with Kate, because we just start mingling, having conversations with various sailors, Marines, whomever, and every time we were in the middle of a conversation and I would look over at Kate, just stone faced, like she was in a different dimension. Not even there.
But she was part of it, though. Like when I was talking to, she was just the most aggressive.
Yes, yes. She slipped in maybe 6 words.
I lost the ability to speak.
Yes.
One lady goes to Kate. She goes to Kate, and Kate was like, "Well, what do you do?" And the woman was like, "Oh, I work in public affairs." And Kate goes, "That must be so exciting."
I could feel myself. I was listening, but I thought if you open your mouth, everyone will know that your mouth is enormous. I felt like my mouth was about 3 feet across, and I said, and everyone will see your giant teeth. And so I was afraid to talk. I started pulling my hair in front of my face so no one could see my giant teeth. Then, yes,
I didn't notice that
yeah.
part.
And then
Is that something that you're usually self-conscious about? Big teeth?
I felt like as soon as everyone would be like,
That's
"Oh
the
my
first
God,
I've
her
ever
mouth
heard
is
that
huge."
from her.
Yeah, you don't
I
have
felt like
big
my
teeth.
mouth is
You have
huge.
normal
I know,
sized
but
teeth.
I felt like at the end of when he has the giant chiclets teeth, Mr. Wilson or whatever. I was like, if I do that,
Dennis the
everyone will
Menace.
see.
Like I had shot a fucking edible down your throat with
Yes.
a slingshot.
So
Yeah.
I became afraid to open my mouth, which is a problem when you're at a cocktail hour and you're supposed to be whatever. The next problem started that my heart started to pound. My heart started to pound so hard that I thought my whole body was going like this to the beat of my heartbeat. And as we're standing there, I thought, am I nodding yes at everyone? I can't tell. So I had to start reaching up and holding on to my own head just to make sure, yes, that I wasn't. So I was holding and I was like, and I still felt like I was. Then I had to go to the bathroom, and I was like, to me, that felt like a journey, like a Herculean journey. I was like, oh my God, I have to go to the bathroom. I had 2 glasses of red wine in my hand for some reason. And
Well, in your defense, the glasses they were serving alcohol in were very small, so I could see that. And the wine was being passed around on a tray.
And I was so hungry, and they had a ton of food they're passing around.
Food
but
was good.
But
Food was good.
I only ate 2 small things because I was like, I can't open my mouth. People will see my giant mouth. So I'm so hungry. I'm afraid to open my mouth. I can't eat. I'm holding 2 glasses of red wine. All I want to do is set them down and have free hands. But all the navy white uniforms people had their white hats on the tables.
Oh, sure.
And I was like, oh,
Can't do this.
No, I can't
God
get
forbid.
the red wine near the thing. So then I'm going through the crowd holding these 2 glasses of red wine. I didn't take a sip of either one the whole time. I held them each for an hour. I go in. I couldn't find the I don't know. It was a nightmare. And finally, I got rid of one, and immediately Chaps came over and handed me another. And I was like, oh, no, it's starting
You were playing
all
like
over.
Edward 40 Hands, but with just yourself.
I get into the bathroom. I have to pee. It's dark in there. All of a sudden, I remember like we're on a boat. All of a sudden, it felt to me like we were in the middle of a storm, and there were
And the
rogue
Intrepid
waves
doesn't
hitting the
budge.
ship.
No.
I
It's
was
not
like,
You think you're in a
floating
building.
ship.
It feels like you're in a building.
holding on to this. I was like, oh my God. There must be a boat in the Hudson that is causing waves like hitting this ship. I can't. And I thought, if you get your pants down, you'll never get them back up. That's it. And so I couldn't. I'm sitting in the
The
bathroom.
things that you were so good, your teeth and not being able to pull
There
your
was
pants.
so many people waiting because that was crowded for area, and I couldn't leave the stall. I'm in there. I'm like, oh my God, I can't pull my pants down. I had to pee. I was hungry. Finally, I gave up. I opened the door. I looked at the ground. I don't think I washed my hands on the way out. I think I just made a beeline out of there. I was like, I gotta find my crew. Anyways, I'm going around. I don't know if I found you guys or what. It was time to go in and get seated. And I was like, thank you, God. I was like counting down the seconds until this happened because that was like a nightmare. It was like, I was describing it to you guys like in Knocked Up when they take
Yes.
the acid and they're at Cirque du Soleil and it's just too much.
Yes. Yeah.
That's what was going on.
Wait, hold on. Before we get into going into the theater, I want to know what was going through your mind because the reception was in like the second deck of the ship, and at one point we went up to the top deck because we were allowed to go up
Yes.
there. You looked petrified when we were up on the top deck.
It was a nightmare. Yes,
Yeah.
it felt
okay.
like a
I just
nightmare.
wanted to confirm that because you looked even worse than when you were inside.
It really reminded me that we were on a
It was
boat.
brighter.
Which I didn't need, and it was brighter. And I felt like we were talking to Marines up there. I'm like, they're looking
Yes.
at my eyes. And that's when I started pulling my hair down as a curtain in front of my face. And I was like, they know. I know they know.
Who does
I know
that?
they know.
Fucking Erin on The Office. does
Yeah.
it. She makes like a room out of her hair. 'Cause
Yeah.
She's a foster kid.
That's essentially what I did. And I could feel myself doing it. And I could feel myself trying to hold my head still. And I was like, oh my God, this is the worst. Like, nightmare. Couldn't wait till the movie started so we could just go sit in the dark and no one would talk to me. And then I saw a friend that I actually used to be in a sketch group with her here.
Right, yes, I remember
we were,
that,
like, good
yes.
friends. I was hiding from her.
And I had forgotten like her name, like what her first. I remember what her last
Marine
name
Corps
was.
officer, yeah.
And I was because I knew Kate had introduced me. Like she, had,
Yeah.
whenever we went to the Headstrong gala, she was there, and Kate had introduced me. So I was kind of like waiting for Kate to be like, "Oh, this is my friend," and like
She was standing 2 feet
what
from
she
me.
normally would do. Kate normally definitely would do
very
that.
quick.
She would look at me, and I would just turn my back, and it was like obvious that she saw me, and I knew she saw me, but I wouldn't acknowledge her. And the more I did that, the weirder. I knew that was weird
And so
behavior.
then I felt like I had to go.
I started panicking.
I felt uncomfortable, and I had to go high and to the right, the other side. Like,
Yes.
no, we clearly remember you.
Yes.
So I'm like, oh, you got promoted. Oh, this, like, and having like all these little small talk jokes and shit.
Yeah.
And Kate just like, again.
I actually ended up texting her yesterday.
Oh wow! What did
And
you say?
I said, oh yeah, because she had texted me at the event. She was like, it was great to see you. And then I waited 2 days, and I was like, I gotta tell you something. If I seemed a little off, I took an edible before we arrived. I put in parentheses, I don't even really drink too much these days, besides Whistle Pig. And I was told, you won't even notice. Well, I felt like I was on a rocket to the moon. So again, sorry if I wasn't more social, #professional. And she was lovely about it.
Oh, okay,
anyway,
good.
but whatever. This is neither here nor there. I'm rambling, I know. We get into the theater. We're sitting there. Before they start the film, this pilot comes out who helped produce the movie. Like, he helped give them tips and tricks or whatever, like, for the movie. And he's talking about his pilot days and whatever. And he says something about, like, the honor of the Navy. And the person sitting directly behind me, and now is when it's peaking for me. Like, I'm about to hit peak.
And he's clearly trying to gas up the Navy members there, and like,
He's trying to say something fun.
like, which is what you do in that kind of scenario.
The woman literally directly behind me in this theater of hundreds of people stands up and yells, "Bullshit!" And I was like, I am too high for whatever the fuck is happening now.
And it was one of those things where I think she thought a joke was going to land.
Yes.
Like, it was like a complimentary thing to the Navy. She is a Marine, so she was like bullshit about the Navy. But it just was not the time and place.
And you guys got that was what she was going for right away. I didn't see she was a Marine.
Because we weren't out of our mind.
I'm high as shit, and I think, oh my God, military protesters have infiltrated the film event, and they're sitting right behind
so
me.
ridiculous.
What do I do? Do I turn around? What if we all get in a fight with them, and I gotta fight these people, and then we get in big trouble at work because we're fighting these people, and blah blah blah. And so I slowly start to turn to like just see who it could be, and I see a blood stripe, and I was like, oh, thank God it's just drunk Marines. Oh, thank you, God. Oh.
Yeah, there was certainly a group that took full advantage of the cocktail hour prior to getting into the theater.
And then I won't get into it. Then the movie begins, and right away, it goes, you're full throttle fucking going. Do, 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 do. My eyes
And
bugged
when that
out
first
of my head.
guitar chord hits,
Yes.
you could. It was almost like being at a sporting event when you're
Boner
in there with so
City.
many people who have clearly seen the movie and love the movie, and then they hit that iconic chord, and you could almost
Everyone's
feel it
in
like
uniform
tense it up, like,
cheering.
oh, here we go.
Oh my God. It was so. I was sitting forward in my seat, like my eyes started bugging out of my. I could feel it that my eyes were bugging out of my head. I don't think I blinked for 2 hours.
Well, you didn't want to miss anything.
I texted you guys. I had to literally hold my eyeballs shut, and I had to like take the dry contacts out of my eyes because I didn't blink for 2 hours. It was fucking awesome. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Anyway.
The movie was incredible.
It really was.
I had a
It's
great time
We
watching
are the
it.
mighty. Thank
It
you.
was so much fun. We had
Yes.
a great time. You definitely 1,000% have to go see it.
Take an edible.
One of my favorite aspects
not
of the
in.
movie, and I was surprised. No, I can't even say that. I'll have to wait.
No, yeah, let's
I don't wanna
let's
give
get
any
into
spoilers to any
details of the
context
movie
or any
next
of
week.
that
Give
stuff.
everybody at least the weekend.
It was awesome though. Troops were like jumping up and cheering and whatever. Yeah, that was sick. That was sweet. So,
It
but
was
sorry
awesome.
to anyone we met that I stared at in a freaked out way.
Let's move on to round number
Sure.
one. We're going to talk a little bit about dolphins and their piss. What do we got here, Kate?
Sure, absolutely. So scientists have discovered that bottlenose dolphins can recognize each other through taste, specifically the taste of their urine. Published this week in the journal Science Advances, the paper by researchers at Austin State University and University of
That's
anyways,
that's Stephen F. Austin.
yeah. Anyway, here nor there. I have something to admit.
What?
On the yak.
You do some edible goofing? Oh,
No way.
we got Katie Weed.
No,
back
it was
here
just
again.
one piece of money, buddy.
Okay, but how much is that?
Whatever. Anyway, we're talking dolphin piss.
Yeah, we are.
The researchers discovered this.
Oh, God.
See, now what people don't realize is now the floodgates are open.
Yeah.
Now that she has made that known to us.
Oh, we're fine.
I'm fine. I'm just goofy.
No,
Yeah, okay.
The researchers discovered this while they were trying to find out more about dolphins' signature whistles. I don't know how you make the jump from whistles to piss, by the way. This,
Oh my goodness.
the specific calls they developed to refer to themselves is their whistle. Jason Brock, one of the study's authors.
I might just sit back and watch
my
this
God.
occur.
It's ridiculous.
It's all because you're making me laugh.
No, it's not.
Dolphins essentially come up with their own name. Do they? What?
They name themselves. Everybody knows that.
What am I?
Don't be an idiot.
Okay, that's news to me.
Flipper out a SAG card.
Okay, dolphins kind of. If I name your best friend, you'll picture them in your head, right?
Yes.
The scientists wanted to know if dolphins similarly recognize others' names. God damn. They tested this by matching the whistles to a different sense. A human will use the same word to describe something, say a mug, whether they hear, see, or feel it. That's what we're trying to get at, Brooks said. I'll be honest, I don't know what they're talking about.
Oh, my God.
To do this thing. Oh, no.
To do this, they mismatch and mismatch the whistle to a different sense as another way of identifying the animal. If another dolphin responded more to the match or the mismatch, it would show they knew which individual it belonged to. They briefly floated, no pun intended, the idea of waterproofing a high-definition TV screen to explore visual cues, but that would have been very heavy, very expensive, and very hard to move around, said Brooke. That's where the urine comes in.
Of course.
Right. The
Whistles,
scientists
yeah.
recalled antidotes of dolphin swimmers through excretion plumes. Wow. That's a big cloud of piss.
Excretion plumes.
That's
I'm
a
gonna
fancy
start using
name.
that instead of piss.
Yes.
Yeah.
With their mouths open. Dolphins can't smell because they don't have an olfactory bulb. So the researchers theorized that they must have used taste of urine to gather information about its owner.
I mean, that's pretty interesting, but I get it. If you don't have a sense of smell and you're tasting stuff, you see your buddy Dolphin Doug just only doing mountain.
Do you think there's anyone on Earth that you could identify by their piss?
Ooh,
I got to be honest with you.
an asparagus farmer?
My gut says yes, but seeing as how I've never done it, I don't know that I can honestly answer you.
Who do you think you could identify?
It's got to be one of my oldest friends.
I'd say spouse.
No.
Because if you've been with them long enough, you've tasted their pee at least a little.
Jesus.
Right?
I'm new to the spouse life.
A little bit you tasted. It's the remnants.
The remnants.
No, I'm sober.
Right?
Man.
Pennies?
Pennies?
I think you'd know the aura of the piss
Right.
a little bit. I think I could tell what somebody was, like a gamer. Like, oh, this is gamer piss. You know?
Yeah. What their job field is.
Yeah, I could tell.
Why?
what a
You
job-
tell me a
because a gamer's crushing
electrician,
Mountain
you
Dew
definitely
and
know.
garbage
Oh, yeah.
food and like whatever. Asparagus
yeah.
farmer.
I mean, think about what MRAP's piss would taste like.
Yes,
Easy.
that's, yeah, okay.
Yeah. So
Well, lest we forget, I made oatmeal with my own urine way back when. We've talked about that story, so I guess I do know a little bit about
yes, you do.
what urine tastes like.
You know your own.
Yes.
Anyways, they did see that dolphins, when another dolphin pisses, they keep their mouth open longer to encounter the
No, we
urine.
skipped over a good part. After collecting samples of dolphin lagoons in Bermuda and Hawaii, which have been trained to give urine for health assessments, they put the pee in a little cup at the end of a very long pole and poured it in front of the dolphin while playing the whistle of another dolphin. So they're trying to have a Pavlovian response.
Interesting.
How do you collect dolphin piss?
My question
Oh,
is...
with a clothes hanger. You put it on the end. You like have this cup and you put it
yes,
around. That's the same way you
yes.
do it with dogs.
Yes. That makes perfect sense.
In the water?
But also...
The first time I ever saw another dog handler do that, it blew my fucking mind. Because
Right.
you always have to get urine samples for your
Oh,
dog.
for the vet stuff.
And he took
Yeah.
it and just wrapped a little metal hanger around it. And when he went to go lift his leg to pee, the handler just swooped it in there. And I was like, oh my God, man.
Yeah, I think any folks like yourself or animal trainers of any sort, they just grow numb to all of that stuff, and it's just
big time.
work.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
it
that's the
doesn't
reason
affect
why I
them.
talk about shit and pissing so much, because that was my job for 10 years.
Yeah.
That's true. But my question is, these scientists, they were sitting around. What had to have occurred that they said to themselves, you know what? You know what we should test? Can dolphins...
Edibles.
Like, are they
true.
buddies?
I feel like things like that really do open up science.
Yes.
It is interesting.
Because
All right.
when you think about it, all science, you got to be a weirdo to just even like try some of these things.
Yeah.
Oh, to come up with some of the theories that they have, like Elon
Right.
Musk's brain and people's brains like that just must be firing at different levels than
Yeah, I don't know what that's like. At
ever
all.
would, for sure. All right, let's move on to round number 2. What do we got here, Kate?
I'm fine now.
Okay.
This is from Task and Purpose. As the poet Charles Bukowski once wrote, if you're going to try, go all the way. That's a lesson for that Zachary Barton, a 36-year-old Army veteran and bodybuilder from Florida, is learning the hard way. You can file a disability claim saying you can barely lift your arms and need a cane to get around, or you can post your gains on Instagram, but you can't do both. Barton pleaded guilty in a West Palm Beach, Florida federal courtroom in May 19th to stealing $245,000 and $286.
That's right. $245,000 and also $286. That's right. That's long
true.
math.
It's not wrong. From VA benefits over several years by claiming a variety of ailments. He admitted to lying on a mental health test by reporting to the VA that he suffered from combat-related PTSD, telling administrators he could barely lift 10 pounds. And
I do find that part odd, and we'll go back into the rest of
Yeah.
it. It's interesting to me that you can say you have all combat experience, and there's no way to really check your records for that. Like, if you go into the VA, if you go into the VA, like, oh, well, yeah, I'm suffering from PTSD, or you take the little thing, and they're like, oh, what happened? You can make up whatever the fuck you want to.
You
'cause
absolutely
there's
could.
absolutely nothing that ties your service
Yeah.
to where you were in the world.
Well, no, because on my DD-214, it definitely
Your
says...
DD-214, but the VA doesn't have access to that. Like, do
they not?
The individual doctors that are going through it, absolutely not.
And there's people who've experienced
that makes
combat who
sense
don't
then.
have cars, you know, who don't have combat action ribbons. There's
Right.
people
Right.
like it's
so that's what I was going to say. You could
confusing-
see that I was in Iraq, but you don't... I mean, for all you know, I could have sat behind a desk for
Right,
the whole
yeah.
year.
Sure,
Or
and
been
even-
outside the
and
wire
even
every
in
day.
that, you would think at this point in time, with as much technology as we have, I mean, I could take a picture of my iPhone when I'm in Vermont, and then 10 years later, my iPhone tells you that I was in Vermont
Yes.
at that time. Like, whenever I pull up that picture, the data that's included in that, there has to be elements of that they can check. Because VA, even though we talk about the VA does a lot of fucked up shit, there's also an insane amount of VA fraud that happens. And not just happens on issues like this where it's a dude who says he can't lift 10 pounds and he's a real life physical trainer, but I'm talking about people who will exaggerate their claims to get more money. Like, it is a big problem.
Well, yeah, there's organizations now even that coach you on what to say and
Yeah.
how to say it.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like a cottage industry,
Yes.
really, which is. But he told administrators he could barely lift 10 pounds and committed to the charade even more by wearing adult diapers and using a cane when he came into appointments. At the same time, Barton was
Like,
also...
that's a level where you need a beating.
Yep.
Like, if
Yes.
you are the type of because the fucked up thing here is there's actually people
Yes.
who are going to the VA that need to use a cane and that need to wear a diaper based on things that happen to them.
Yeah.
Like, they had stomach surgery or whatever, incontinence happened to them, and that's just the life that they're living.
Oh, yeah.
To have somebody act like that's an issue has got to be infuriating. For if you are actually suffering from that and your life completely changes, people don't think about the mental stigma that goes behind that and how difficult that would be as a person to deal with that. And this fucking piece of shit just does
Benefiting
it
off
just
it.
to get more money.
And how about all the people who are too proud to even go to the VA and
Right.
receive the benefits that they are so
Suffering
wholeheartedly,
quietly.
they're suffering quietly and they are due these benefits and they just don't have them. Meanwhile, this guy is putting on this charade to collect
Yep.
a check every month.
He sure was, because Barton was a self-described gym rat who was fond of posting his lifting exploits on social media. That was his downfall, of course. His sentencing is scheduled for August 11th, and he faces up to 10 years in prison, 3 years of supervised release, and $250,000 fine. That said, he'll probably have plenty of time to work out if he ends up behind bars. This guy, looking at his photos, looks like just an absolute douchebag.
Yeah, and he's been doing it for a long time. That's essentially the story. He's been doing it for a long time, and there's a ton of people out there, and this guy looks exactly like the type of guy who would do this for sure.
Yeah, thankfully somebody tipped off the Inspector General's office, and that is how he got caught. This is crazy. In June 2019, he appeared at a medical appointment using a cane. He appeared to struggle getting up and down and told doctors, "I only go to the gym to socialize." He could only lift 5-pound dumbbells. Yeah, okay. Sure.
It's ridiculous. Some of the things that he actually did, and that saying that I can't pick up anything, it's remarkably dumb. But the thing that got him eventually was his own. Gym bros cannot say that I can't lift when somebody's in the gym with them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so somebody from the VA went when they were investigating and found out that he was lying, and he said that he was doing all kinds of leg presses and
650 pounds
and going all this, and they eventually just kind of told on himself. So that's the end of the story. Now he gets to go to jail for a long time. Congratulations.
By the way, final thing too, the agent, because he had claimed all this stuff, he felt free to let the agent know that despite using anabolic steroids and performance enhancers, he had no problem achieving an erection.
Oh, wow.
Which was in direct contrast to his disability claim. He lied about boners as well.
Oh.
So, yeah. Big steroids.
It is a big steroid story and
Anyway.
big boner, too. I wonder how big his dick is. No.
Not big.
Not big. Can't be. All right, let's move on to round number 3. This story was interesting that it came out right at the same time, same arc, because I have seen certain fighter pilots been like, this story doesn't make a lot of sense, like the way that Maverick is going to come in 30-something years later and still be a captain. He'd be kicked the fuck out.
Right.
If you reach time limitations. But there's also is some examples of waivers of people who are highly skilled that are not going to get promoted, but they have a certain particular set of skills.
They do.
As they would say.
They'll find you and kill you.
So this story is kind of like that guy, and it's interesting because it just happened.
Yes. In a real-life spin on Top Gun Mavericks, God damn it. In a real-life spin on Top Gun Mavericks, Pete Maverick Mitchell, a 63-year-old retired Russian major general, was shot out of the sky by a Stinger shoulder-fired anti-aircraft missile while carrying an Su-25 over Ukraine, according to the BBC. The BBC's Russian service said it had confirmed the report of Kanamat Batshev's death with 3 of his former subordinates. But one thing is certain, Batashev, I'm fucking up his name, like the fictional Maverick, has a hot dog history of his own. His storied Russian military aviation career ended in June 2012 after being accused of crashing a fighter jet near Petrovskadovsk, longtime stoolies in Petrovskadovsk. Batashev was actually twice dinged for his antics. He was suspended from flying in 2011 for a similar violation. Then, in 2012, he ran tactical flight exercises at the air base in Karelia, also a long-time stoolies. He decided, without going to proper training and pre-flight medical checks, to fly a fighter jet. Not only that, he also decided to participate in performing aerial weather reconnaissance.
What this is essentially saying is this guy, even though he was a pilot, he was so brazen that if he saw a plane, like on other stories that I read about it, if he saw a plane that he wanted to fly, because he was so high ranking, he would just go up and be like, I'm going to fly this. Even though he's not authorized to fly it, he's not trained on how to fly it. These are 2 different types of planes that he normally flies, and he's just like, fuck it, I'm going to go up there and do it, and I'm going to do what they do. I'm going to do a little area weather reconnaissance. You have to be trained to do that.
Yeah, you don't just kind of just get up there and figure it out.
Goof.
Yeah.
It even says at one point he hops in this fighter jet. He's up there goofing. He does a bell figure, but due to errors in piloting, the fighter entered the inverted corkscrew position and was not able to correct it. Both pilots ejected at an altitude of about 1,640 feet. So they're getting pretty
Which
close
is pretty low, yeah.
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 And last week, Ukraine officials reported that they shot down an Su-25, which apparently was the one piloted by Batashev.
And there's also videos that are floating around of him flying this plane that he's not really authorized to fly. And people are saying, and they can't really confirm it, but that he's doing it for the Wagner Group. That's just essentially their contractors.
Right, so Russia can say it wasn't us. Like, our military didn't send him up there, this rogue fighter pilot. And it's, of course, probably their Wagner Group. Under most circumstances, a 63-year-old has no business flying a combat mission, but again, Wagner Group finds a way. In the U.S. military, some general and flag officers do occasionally fly 4th and 5th generation fighter aircraft, but not let into combat like Batashev. You will see in the U.S. Navy an admiral fly a 4th or 5th generation, but they only do it during the day and they do not go into combat.
And that's because the physical toll on your body is so strong as well.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this story. Is there anyone that you know of, like, militarily that could come back and it would be like a huge boom? Because that's where I could see a
Like
story
a huge morale boost?
Yeah, like real life military member. You walk back into the
Chesty
unit,
Puller,
like
everybody
a Chesty
was-
Puller type.
Patton.
I think if, like, let's say there was a large scale conflict and let's say we got involved in Russia and what's happening
Sure.
in Ukraine. Mad Dog Mattis walks into 1st Marine Division, and he's back in camis and 4 stars.
Only if he's smoking a cigarette.
Oh,
when he
yeah,
walks
a
in.
huge cigar. What
No,
about
no, cigarette, Marlboro
huge
Red.
cigar, whiskey with the big ball that Connor was talking about, and he comes
Says,
in.
"All right, motherfuckers."
He comes in, he sits down. They have like the big auditorium with like the Marine Corps flag behind him and all that stuff. And he just sits down, crosses his arms, and he's like, "Ladies and gentlemen, we've got a mission at hand."
Yeah, I'm in. Count me
And
in.
then you're just like, "Oh shit."
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in completely.
I feel like there's not as many living former folks like that have that aura about them who could have that sort of impact. Like, obviously, there's tons throughout history that we could rattle off right now, but I don't know.
Or they
Besides
didn't
Mattis,
get super political and ruined it for everybody.
right? Yeah, that too. Exactly. So I can't really think off the top of my head anybody
Leave that
besides
up to
Mattis.
us.
Every single one of like the major stories, for the most part, almost like 90% is like turns out to be just an insane person.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Really quick, while we're talking about these pilots and everything, and the physical toll that it takes on their bodies, I never even really thought about it. And then watching this last Top Gun movie, which a lot of it was actually like Tom Cruise and fighter jet, it sounds like when Venus and Serena are like hitting the tennis balls, like they like you see how physically draining it is on them. Like that movie really highlights how hard it is.
Yeah,
to
I mean,
think
G-force
about-
will take it out of you.
Even
Yeah, that
when we
was
rode
interesting.
in the race cars, when we went down to Daytona, and you're hitting those corners going pretty fast, and you get pushed into the side of the door, or the seatbelt grabs on hold of you. This is that on like steroids.
Yes.
Big
Like
time steroids.
every single move, and it's not like these seats in an F-18 aren't built like a Rolls Royce. They're not built for comfort of the user.
Not at all. Not at all. So
Yeah,
that was
interesting.
certainly impressive that they all did that physically for their roles.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, let's move on to the next round. That's going to be talking a little bit about the Coast Guard. Kate, what did you interview them about?
Yes. So here's my notes here.
Oh.
We posted an Instagram story that was a Coast Guard rescue boat in San Francisco in these massive, like 25, 30-foot waves. And it was just awesome. Somebody on the shore was recording it, and they're like, "Oh my God, this boat's about to get fucked." And then it just like keeps crushing it. So we had a PA reach out from the Coast Guard. I said, "Let's go," especially because it's National Safe Boater Week, my friends. You want to be safe in those boats. So this is kind of broken down, though. The two Coast Guard folks that I interviewed are in the middle. They're stationed like way the fuck out there in the boonies. So the internet wasn't so great.
Okay.
So this is kind of a little bit of a two-parter.
Theirs was fine. It was ours.
It was ours that was actually fucked up. But we'll kick off the first one real quick, and then we'll hop into the second, which is anything you ever wanted to know about the Coast Guard will be the second interview. But this is the boat's been up first. Hit it. All right, now on Zero Blog 30. A couple weeks ago, I found this TikTok and posted it to the ZBT Instagram it was in San Francisco. There's these enormous, enormous waves and this tiny little boat. And the wave is coming towards the boat. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm about to watch somebody like die in this boat. It's about to get capsized. No, somehow it goes right over it, keeps charging through. And it turns out it's a Coast Guard boat, a 47-foot self-righting MLB conducting surf training. How do I know this? The comments on the post right away. All these coasties started saying like, "Oh man, this is the most badass stuff you could do. Surf training, it's crazy." A bunch of people started commenting about times they've been saved by the Coast Guard. And Michael Clark, he's a public affairs specialist. He reached out to me and was like, "Do you want to talk to some of the people doing this badass stuff at sea?" Answer, absolutely, yes, I do. So right now I'm joined by Petty Officer Second Class Kelsey Dozier and Petty Officer First Class Wallace Quall. Fair warning, Wallace's internet, not so great right now. So he has that in common with Barstool. So mostly we'll be talking to Kelsey at the moment, but she's stationed in Yaquina Bay in Oregon, and both of them are surfmen. So first of all, that's kind of a rarity within, I'll be honest, like we've had people from all the other branches on. I don't know shit about the Coast Guard. Can you break down for me? What does it mean? You join, you're a Coast Guardsman. What does it mean to become a surfman?
So a surfman is somebody that's the most highly trained and certified person to drive the lifeboats. So those are obviously like the life-saving aspect of the Coast Guard, which is actually a pretty small piece of even the Coast Guard. as small as a branch as we are. As you start to whittle your way through all the numbers, you get to the surfmen. So we're certified to train and operate those boats, those silver lifeboats that you saw in 30-foot seas, 20-foot surf, and 50 knots of sustained wind. So we can almost go out in any conditions, not necessarily all the time. If it's bad enough, there are points that we won't go out, but that's kind of like the snippet of surfmen as far as Coast Guard.
And does everybody who becomes a surfman, do you all have to do that training in the lifeboats where you go out and face those giant waves? Like you couldn't pay me to do that in any world.
Yeah, for sure. There's no way to become proficient without training. It's just like anything else. So if that's the career path that you want to choose when you join the Coast Guard, then that's what you're going to be looking at, is training in those conditions. Doesn't matter if it's raining sideways or if it's super sunny, like as long as there's surf, that's what we train in.
And obviously you build up to it, but the first time you do something like that, can you describe what that was like for you?
I thought it was pretty awesome.
And this is why we need people like you, and you do what you do.
Yeah. I'm kind of an adrenaline junkie, so I thought it was super cool. The amount of power from the boats, and then the expertise that it takes to actually navigate that. It's not necessarily like a simple obstacle, especially when you're in an entire surf zone. So like an entire beach area, and that's what we transit in, to get in and out of. It's not necessarily just one or two waves that you're taking. It's quite a few, and then the risk of getting in and out of that area. And I thought it was awesome.
During training, you're training, you're learning. Does it ever go wrong in those situations?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a reasonable expectation that something is going to go not according to plan, just because it is training. So we have we do a lot of risk assessment, risk mitigation. There's a ton of conversations and communication between everybody. And there's always an instructor on the boat. We never give a brand new
see you guys later.
Trying to become a coxswain. Yeah, have a good one.
All right, we'll see you maybe.
You make it through. So there's always the more senior certified person that's on the boat that's training them and helping them out. But I mean, yeah, inevitably when you put massive waves in a lifeboat and inexperience all together, there are occasions that you can get knocked down or something happen.
Yeah, I've been slightly buzzed on a pontoon boat and hurt my back going over a couple bumps. So I imagine this is much more intense than that. So yeah. So I totally know what you've been through is what I'm trying to say. I understand.
Yeah. I see it. We're right here.
Besides that video, that really caught my attention, what's some of the other training that you have to go through to become a surfman? Like what does the school for that look like?
So, from the beginning, from when you join the Coast Guard, you get to choose the rate that you go. So you're going to choose bosun mate if surf is the way that you want to go. And then you're going to go to BMA school. And then out of BMA school, you'll certify as a coxswain, which is just your basic certification. They can drive in up to 10-foot seas. And then you'll end up going to heavy weather school, which is the National Motor Lifeboat School, which is where BM1 Qual is going right now, where he's actually PCS2. So they have an entire school of instructors. So that mitigates the risk by a lot when you put a group of instructors with people that are inexperienced. And then once you certify heavy weather, then you're looking at making surf. So once you get enough time underway in those big scary waves and get all the knowledge and experience and exposure that you need, then you'll essentially take a board. So that's kind of like an interview, and display your knowledge. And then an underway check ride is what it's called. That is where you get to essentially perform and show that you know what you were just talking about on your board. Yeah. And then you'll certify. So it's not a short process, as short as that sounds when I explain it, right? You're like, oh yeah, it's super easy. The timeline can range, like from 4 to 6 years, depending on who you are, where you are, your level of like ability already coming into it, your knowledge, your like how you learn, like how quickly that you can learn.
Yeah.
Things like that.
I would argue that the instructors are the bravest ones of all in this. Getting in the boat with people who don't know and being like, I got to do this again tomorrow. Are you kidding me? Oh my God. Yeah. And so then once you're in the, I would imagine too, like this sounds dorky, but like in the Marine Corps, you'd see the special forces guy, Marsoc, going by in their black shorts and you'd be like, oh, those are the badasses. That's what I imagine the surfmen are, the Coast Guard. You're like, there they go. The badasses out in the waves out there. So that's pretty cool. Since you've been doing it, can you give some examples of some of the rescues that you've been a part of?
Probably like one of the cases that I've been out on, that was a fishing vessel that had lost their propulsion and they were out in 40-ish knots of wind. They were south of us, and we went down and hooked them up. They had anchored and they were like right outside of the surf. So we had a really narrow ability of being able to get them, and their anchor wasn't holding. So we went up, got them hooked up in tow, and came back to the bar. And when we got back to the bar, the ebb was starting and then it was starting to get dark. So of course the waves were getting a little bit more upright.
Yeah.
So yeah, and we towed them in across the bar during night conditions, and it was probably 12 to 14, 16 foot waves coming in across.
Do you ever hear from the people after that? Do they ever roll around and be like, hey, by the way, thanks for that? Because like, I mean, they wouldn't have made it without you. Like, do you hear from a lot of people afterwards, or what's the vibe?
Yeah, we do. The community here, and I think honestly, the community in a lot of the coastal towns that have the Coast Guard, like these small boat communities, they are for sure appreciative of us. They know that we're here for them. Like we're, that's our purpose at these bars and inlets in the Pacific Northwest. So usually when we go to hook them up in side tow, they're like, oh my God, that was awesome. Like, thank you so much.
Yeah. Do you get 10 pounds of crab dropped off the next week? It's just at your back dock. You're like, all right, we're glad we saved those guys. Hell yeah. That's sweet.
You talk about the rescues, the stories that we've been a part of. All those things are really great, and they are good memories, and it's a large part of the purpose of why I wanted to stay and do it. But what I've really found to be most memorable about my time in the Coast Guard, and specifically the lifeboat community so far, is just the people that I've been able to work with and serve alongside, and just build connections and meet people that are, some of the greatest people that I've got to encounter in my life and work alongside. Just all seems like everybody is really united in the goal of what it is that we're trying to accomplish out here, and really good at being a team and working as a team to always accomplish what it is we're trying to do.
Oh yeah. I imagine at that level, you have to be enthusiastic about what you do every day because you're putting so much on the line for yourself, for other people. And so it really does gas you up to be around people who are excited about their job. That makes a huge difference. So I can understand how you'd be drawn to it. That's awesome. And best of luck as you're going through this next phase. It's exciting. Kelsey, is there anything else you want to add? Anybody looking to go through it? Because it's pretty
as far as for anybody that's like thinking about the Coast Guard as an option, or even the military, really not anything against any of the other branches.
Let it out. We deserve it.
I know. We always get left out of everything.
I know.
So the Coast Guard, in reality, as a branch, is a really good option for people. And I think one of the most advantageous things about the Coast Guard that the other branches don't really offer is that you don't have to choose your MOS upon signing up. Like, you go out into the fleet and you get to experience a lot of things it's called a non-rated person. So like, you really get to adventure for a minute and figure out what it is that you really want to do. So the Coast Guard is great with that. And then, somebody that wants to endeavor into the small boat community, I would say to just reach out to somebody that's at a small boat unit or at a surf unit and, kind of pick their brain and remember that one person's opinion of something isn't the end all be all of everything. Like, if there's a garbage unit for everybody, but that garbage unit might be somebody else's dream billet. So like, the Coast Guard is super diverse. Like if you don't want anything to do with the small boats, then you can go be on cutters. You can go be at an MSU. You can go, like, there's so much that you can do in the Coast Guard for as small of a branch as we are.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously I'm raw small boats. This is where I'll spend my career. And like Wally said, this is a small group of people in the Pacific Northwest and the other lifeboat units, these heavy weather and surf stations. And it's a phenomenal group of people to work with. Like, it's absolutely amazing, the opportunities that we get.
I would just suggest, instead of small boat community, I would prefer to call it motherfucking big wave blast off. And I would market it slightly differently from the video I saw that had my heart racing and my I'll say it, my butthole very clenched. But I'm grateful there's people like you out there doing what you guys do. And I'm gonna make you guys a t-shirt, a small boat t-shirt that has my branding of the I'll send it your way.
I would love that.
But thank you guys so much for your time and for everything that you do. And we're gonna get more coasties on the show. This has been, I think you guys are the first somehow.
Awesome.
We'll
That's how we like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we like to be that way.
Definitely. Well, best of luck with everything. And thank you so much for coming on the show.
Again, slight internet trouble. So that was kind of janky the way those two got squished together. I wish we could have talked more to them because really, really fascinating people with fascinating jobs. But this is where the next person comes in. Smooth it all out.
Hit it.
Hit it.
All right, now we've got Petty Officer Third Class Michael Clark of the Coast Guard, and you were the one who introduced me to those two. Now, after we finished talking to them, you and I were just talking Coast Guard, and some of the stuff you were saying was so interesting to me. I was like, I want to have this guy on the show. Safe Boat Week after all. So it's Safe Boating Week. I want to learn a little bit more. So first, quick backstory on you. How did you come about? Because you're an Eagles fan, right? You're from the...
Yeah, so I'm from Jersey. Was born in Atlanta, but grew up in Jersey on the Jersey Shore, right?
Yeah.
Like, not far from New York, actually, where you are, over towards the Sandy Hook, Red Bank area, in Rumson, New Jersey. I actually was diehard, kind of like always wanted to be in the military. I was actually an Army ROTC in college. I applied to OCS with the Marine Corps and didn't get in.
Yeah.
Wonder I don't know why, right?
I didn't either. It's fine. No, the officer side wasn't having it.
But graduating college, I knew I wanted to join, and I knew the Coast Guard was something I knew what it was, just being around the coast and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So I joined and definitely didn't want to be a public affairs specialist when I first joined, right? So I went to boot camp, and as Petty Officer Dozier alluded to, when you join the Coast Guard, you get to pick what you want to do. So
it's not like in the Marine Corps ahead of time, before I went to boot camp, I was assigned a job. In the Coast Guard, you go through boot camp and then they kind of let you try out different jobs.
Kind of, yeah. So you go through boot camp, which is 8 weeks at Cape May. It's actually modeled after, we use the Marine Corps drill manual. So it's the premises are all the same, but it's not nearly as long, right? Can
I ask too? Like, I don't know I know what the other boot camps are like, kind of. I have no idea. Sure. What is Coast Guard boot camp like? Are you like, I picture you guys running into the ocean. Like, I picture it being like a mini Navy SEAL training.
I never went in the ocean when I was there. We did some drill, like some training and incentive training, if you will, on the beach.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's 8 weeks. It's apart from all of this, COVID related stuff, where they quarantine you and everything. But it actually, as far as what we call CCs, or drill instructors, or whatever we call company commanders, their whole qualification process is by the book, the same manual, literally, the Marine Corps uses. So the model by which they've built the Coast Guard boot camp, which is very different from Marine Corps boot camp, right? We're just a different service. But as far as what they're trying to get out of you, as far as like mental readiness, most of all, you never know what's happening next, sort of thing. But it's like I have a lot of buddies in the Coast Guard who are prior Marines, prior Army, and stuff.
Yeah, I heard it's pretty hard. I heard it's one of the harder boot camps. So I was just curious.
I mean, I've never been to any other boot camps. That's all I really know.
Just say yes, make it seem cooler. Yes, of course it is.
Actually, it's interesting as a PA, and I'll get to this, I guess. It's the only Coast Guard A school, or like MOS school, that is DOD. So I actually lived for a couple months while I was at my MOS school, if you will, A school, in the Marine Corps barracks. So I had a good opportunity to talk with all of them about their. And I had been in the service for 4 or 5 years when they were fresh out of MCT or whatever it is. Right. So anyway, it's boot camp. There's a swim test.
You're cleaning stuff. You're getting yelled at.
Right. You're not allowed to like lean on the bulkhead, or if like when we say like keep your eyes in the boat, like if you're ever caught, it's the same. They'll find a way to smoke it type of thing. Like,
right.
It's just the same gig. It's if you're joining the Coast Guard or you want to join the Coast Guard, don't do it as like a cop out to not do that stuff. It's definitely going to be a rude awakening for you.
Yeah. So you get out of boot camp and you're still not assigned a job yet.
Right. So I got in, and I had always been military interested, if you will. And that was kind of sports and like Army men is what I liked when I was little. Right.
Yeah.
So I made this decision to join the Coast Guard, and I wanted to be a bosun mate, like Petty Officer Claw, Petty Officer Dozier, like a mariner by trade. Like Coast Guard bosun mates are kind of the standard of boat crews and search and rescue and law enforcement on the water. And they're that kind of echelon. Or a maritime enforcement specialist, which is essentially like law enforcement, tactical operations on the water. And we do have special operations groups, if you will. They don't anymore, but like, you used to be able to go into the SEALs if you were in the Coast Guard. It's like, there's this we don't anymore, but there's these weird kind of places how the Coast Guard kind of fits in. We're weird. That's all I can really say. But anyway, so I went through boot camp. I got stationed at a search and rescue station on the Gulf of Mexico in Yankeetown, Florida, way out in the middle of nowhere. It's like a shrimp boat community, sort of swamp.
It's an oxymoron too. Yankeetown, Florida.
Right. It's got a
like
reputation.
A nightmare.
It was fortunately I had an awesome crew. I was just on one of my buddy's weddings like 3 weeks ago, and we were stationed together for 4 years. But anyway, I actually one day, just like a public affairs specialist, did a media escort, and I got to picking her brain and decided to go that way. To answer your original question, the Coast Guard, yes, as a non-rated E2, E3, you can put in to go TDY to shadow an electrician's mate or an aviation maintenance technician, the person who does the basket out of the helicopter.
Wow.
You can put in, and your command, ops permitting. I was at a station, so I'm not going to sea for 6 months at a time. That makes it a little easier. But so I actually, a lot of my time as a non-rate, I would go even on Liberty because I saw it as an advantage to get some professional knowledge. So the nearby office was near where I lived. So I did a lot of shadowing, and became a public affairs specialist. And that's kind of, I opted to do that.
And what does that mean? Like for you now, do you go base to base, like highlighting stories of what they're up to? Like what does that mean for you?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the nuts and bolts of the job is media relations, content creation and editing, social media management, news writing. So when we were on duty, standing 24/7 media duty, whatever, like any hour of the day, the media call, or you get a call from whatever command center. Hey, we've got a search and rescue case, or this happening, or a bomb threat, or whatever we're responding to. It could be anything from like a whale in a net to, a Washington State ferry with 500 people on board with a bomb threat. Whatever it is, we start to get the wheels turning for writing the news article, getting it in the news, tracking down imagery, et cetera, et cetera. So the whole point of my job is to like spread awareness and tell the Coast Guard story.
Which is a busy job, because sometimes when we're having like on Zero Blog 30, to finding new stories is difficult. 100% of the time, I know if I go to Google and I type in Coast Guard and hit news, there's like 50 stories every week from around the country of whether it's stopping like smugglers off the coast of Florida or saving somebody up in Washington, or, just small stuff like this, innocuous things, but helping out the community in some type of way somewhere in the country. Like there's always a story. They're always doing something. But you were telling me you had some really interesting facts about the Coast Guard too. Like it's because it's a mystery to us. I don't think we've ever.
It's ironic. Yeah, it's ironic because like we're doing a good job, I hope, right, of getting us in the news, and that's the whole like to get airtime really, and get engagement on social and stuff like that. And that's largely because we're DHS most of the time, and there are reasons for that, which I can talk about if you want to.
So you're Department of Homeland Security. You're not part of the DoD, but are you considered a military branance?
Though there's the
That's
question,
the question.
right?
Yeah,
I could go on all day about what we consider to be one of our 11 statutory missions, which I guess I'm not going to go through them all and all that stuff. I guess I'll talk about a couple interesting ones that people might not know about, but search and rescue is like our brand, right?
I think most people know. We picture the helicopter with the basket going down, and that's what we picture. That and like the keeping smugglers out. Like those are the two things I would say. That's all I know.
Right. I mean, I guess first I'd preface by saying like I'm not a Coast Guard historian. I'm not a recruiter. Obviously everyone's like hurting for people and stuff right now.
Yeah.
But I chose to do this because as talking to BM2, Dozier, BM1 Qual, it's like, you can ask them, tell me about some cool stories. Like they have,
they're too humble.
Not tell you.
Yeah.
And I saw that when I was in Florida, with the government shutdown, we're working. I mean, I have friends are out at sea for 6 months at a time. Some of them are deployed on Navy ships as like tactical law enforcement teams. They're not getting paid, while other branches right next to them are getting paid, just because of the makeup of how we kind of exist, right? So to answer, I guess the question, to circle back, I know I go off on tangents, but
You're on the right show.
We're on.
Fine.
We are transferable to the Navy, and we have been in times of war. Going super into that aspect, if I'm going to argue, like, are we a military branch? I would say Google it, seriously. Just, I guess, a couple of like factoids about it. I'm not going to go through like and make this a history lesson, but we're the longest standing naval service. We were founded in 1790 by Alexander Hamilton because after the American Revolution, we were going bankrupt, right, as a country. So we needed like stop the pirates, like from taking advantage of our unregulated waterways, and to enforce tariffs and taxing and start to regulate our waterways and our ports. So that's like our origin. All these other services merged together in 1915 to create like what is now the Coast Guard with all these other things, right? But essentially just Google it. I'd say the first naval shots of the Civil War were fired by Coast Guard ship.
Yeah.
Our Douglas Munro is kind of like our Chesty Puller or Audie Murphy. He's the Coast Guard's only Medal of Honor recipient. He is accredited with saving a couple hundred Marines at Guadalcanal. So Google it.
I didn't know that. I had no idea.
Yeah. He's actually a Washington native. It's a big thing. The Marine Corps at JBLM, Joint Base Lewis McCord, I think, they come out and do the honor guard every year for his birthday and memorial. So it's a big local, but again, just kind of little known. But I would say just Google the military history if you're actually wondering, like, is the Coast Guard a military branch? All the way through.
I say yes. I served the Coast in Afghanistan. He was a customs guy.
Yeah.
And he worked out of our building. I was like, what are you doing here? We're landlocked. What are you? And he's like, oh, we do so much more than you realize that we do. We are everywhere.
Like it's interesting. We're kind of there all the time, but like in Vietnam and World War II, like D-Day, right? A lot of the Higgins boats were manned by coasties, and that famous picture, Into the Jaws of Death, from the boat at Omaha Beach, was taken by a coastie or whatever. So
most of those boats going to shore were piloted by.
It was a joint force with Navy and us, but given our expertise, right, of navigating kind of treacherous shoals and stuff and small boats, which we get the puddle pirate thing, but like we thrive there, right? There's a lot of expertise that comes into honestly shallow water operating. I
had no idea the Coast Guard was at D-Day. Like I had no idea.
Yeah, and I mean there's the African campaign, all that sort of stuff. But I would say, without beating a dead horse, like if you're interested, to the listener, go ahead and Google it. It's interesting if you're a history buff in the very least. But
if most you're of the time interested, go ahead and call your local recruiter. See what they have to say.
Drop my name. I just found out the Coast Guard's offering for any coasties listening, they're offering $500 incentive for anyone who like will get someone to enlist. So it's
beers on Michael Clark. If you say his name, he'll take us all out for a round. So, what are some of the other 11 like besides like rescue, smuggling are the two? I know that's not the name of the two of them, but like what are some of the 11 main missions that you guys have?
Again, I won't go into like each one of them, but we are DHS for jurisdictional reasons, really. So military readiness, like we're exactly that, like ready, right? And we're actively engaged in supplementing naval forces. We have cutters that are steaming with the 5th and 7th fleets and stuff like that, like all over the world. However, we're not DOD. And one of the reasons why that is, we do maritime law enforcement is really a big part of what we do. And so we have teams that deploy and are able to board vessels on international waters. Essentially, we have law enforcement capacity. The military does not, so we can do that. So law enforcement is a big part of what we do. And that's both we're kind of the global leader, if I do say so myself, in what the commandant refers to as ensuring a rules-based order, right? Like making sure that people aren't just destroying the ocean or trafficking drugs and weapons around the world and so on and so forth. We're promoting a coalition with other nations to do that. So a big part of what we do is like regulation of the oceans on an international agreement basis. But that aside, a couple of interesting ones. One I'll drop is aids to navigation, which is one that definitely does not get a lot of shine, but is a community that's very proud, and it's really hard, dirty work in the Coast Guard. Essentially, my understanding, again, I'm not the subject matter expert here, but is like over 90% of goods they end up on your shelves, whether it's whatever it may be, toilet paper, whatever it is.
It's a key one for me, as we all know. Yes, we may have been talking about my diarrhea before the show.
Yeah, we're not just saving lives, we're saving butts, right? To
Coast Guard, saving your ass.
Hey, to get that on the shelves, you need to ship that, right? Which requires a lot. It requires regulation and preventative, like inspection of these ships, so they're not just spewing oil and running under dangerous conditions, traveling around our ports and waterways, let alone globally. But so that inspections aspect, but aids to navigation is like the maintenance of the waterways. So like all the buoys and dayboards and lighthouses and everything that make sure that there's not a tanker with thousands of gallons of oil on board running into a reef somewhere. And so we uphold the waterways and also kind of do like air traffic, like vessel traffic control, oversee that. Right on a global, so it's trillions of dollars every year that we control to ensure the economy is work. So the deck plate level of that, though,
I never even thought about who was doing that.
Right, and you see the ship, but
especially here in New York, you go to the beach and it's just endless line of container ships waiting to come into the ports here, and like
it's a big thing.
Somebody's got to direct them and keep all the signage fresh. That's crazy.
Even a lot of the places they anchor have to be regulated and approved by us as federally locations that are safe and okay.
Yeah.
Right? So it's even like telling them where they can drop anchor is a part of what the government does. But so with that, in my opinion, one of the unsung jobs of the Coast Guard. These cutters are called Aton cutters. They have a black hull and they have a crane on them. A lot of them, they go out to sea and they're in heavy seas a lot of the time, lifting buoys that are made of steel and metal that weigh several tons out of the water, swinging up ahead over decks, bringing them and maintaining them and make sure they're lit and they're in the right spot and stuff. And this takes a lot of effort and resources and time and honestly risk management to do these things. So that's just one thing. I guess another one I had mentioned the other day that I think sparked interest was like ice operations. With the Aton thing, we also have cutters that break through the ice in these waterways to ensure, in the wintertime, again, commerce just doesn't stop.
Right.
So that's one thing. But we actually we're the nation's polar going service, dating very far back to kind of the early polar explorers in the Arctic, and our heritage goes back very far. So again, look into that if you're interested. Again, but every year, one kind of the highlight of that, I guess I'd say, is the Coast Guard cutter Polar Star. Every year ventures to Antarctica. McMurdo Station is kind of the United States and our allies or our partners logistical hub for science and research and stuff like that, and kind of our logistical hub in Antarctica. And in the wintertime, the only way to get resupply, refuel there is to literally just plow a path essentially in a very methodical and smart way through ice that can be 12 feet thick, more whatever. And if we don't do that every year, we only have one ship in the US that can do it, and it's very old. We're in the process of building more ships right now, but it's well past its service life by a long time. And every year they pave a path. So that these people, scientists, researchers, et cetera, can make it through the winter. So it's just one thing that the Coast Guard does, and is definitely a part of our heritage and our identity that people don't know about. They're gone. I forget, they're 4 months out of the year. They're every year out there doing that. And into the Arctic too. And that's a different mission, science and research related, but also projecting our sovereignty out in Alaska. I'm pretty sure we ran into kind of Russian vessels and vessels of other nations kind of like in our area, if you will.
Mhm.
Again, I'm not the subject matter expert there, but we need to project sovereignty over our Alaska, right? Otherwise,
Right. And because there's certain other countries too that don't give a shit about the environment or fishing,
Right.
like the rules of fishing and all that kind of stuff. And they're coming over to our shores and they're, to put it eloquently, effing shit up.
And not just ours, but smaller nations, right?
Yeah.
In other parts of the world that don't have kind of the infrastructure or the might, if you will, to kind of enforce their own laws, they can be taken advantage of. So we partner with a lot of these nations throughout like Oceania and Western Pacific to, again, enforce this, what we call a rules-based order on the ocean, right? Otherwise, if it's just the Wild West, these resources are depleted. So like one of our missions is marine environmental protection. So like an oil spill or something, who shows up to help do that? Like the Coast Guard helps coordinate the cleanup or regulate.
You're the ones who wash the baby ducks with Dawn, right?
Yeah,
That's
be a marine
guys.
science technician. That's an MST. Yeah.
But that's a real, like, the people who come and cordon things off and take it, like, that's you guys then?
Yeah, I mean, we also contract and work with Army Corps of Engineers and stuff. Yeah,
right. Yeah.
Well, then that's kind of the issue, if you will, on what I like to call a brand challenge. Is we wear all these different hats and like we're weird, man. Like it's as simple as that. We look different. We like our uniforms. We wear ball caps. Like we just look different. And we are different, and we don't want to change that. The Coast Guard is the Coast Guard, and we like being the Coast Guard.
First of all, that's the big selling point that we're all missing right here. You guys get to wear ball caps. You're wearing a cool ass baseball hat, and that's your.
I've been pushing for snapbacks. They're still on the Velcro grind, but whatever.
Sold. Sign me up literally right now. I want to go. That's big hat lady. But you're right. That is like, there's so many different things, and most of the public only knows about small parts of it. Does that hurt recruiting? Has there been a shortage, or like, I mean, the stuff we do know is pretty cool too. So
across the board, from what I'm hearing, like recruiting the military is kind of, it's a point of strategic priority, if you will.
Yeah.
Definitely for us, again, kind of the other side of that coin, DHS or DOD, we have DHS dollars, not DOD dollars. So we don't have money the Army has to get 10 seconds commercial in the Super Bowl, right? Like we don't have that pocket. So we rely very much heavily on organic interaction like this, right? Like to just get into the conversation, into the news wire, and just create a hubbub about the Coast Guard, just talk.
Yeah, our guy Large, his son was interested in joining the Coast Guard, so they went down to Cape May and they took him out in the boat. He said they had the best time. He ended up taking a different route, but he said like it was eye opening. He said they learned a ton of stuff they didn't know, and that like it was a game changer for him. So
I'm actually, like I said, I'm from Jersey originally, and actually read. I'm a longtime story, if you will. I read Large has like been to my hometown, and he's written some blogs about like my hometown and whatnot. And I was telling you, I was bummed to hear that Podfather's got the axe. I mean,
I know,
show, but I'm not like, I'm a whatever, like I don't have a kid, right? Like, but like it's a great show. But I hit him up and I said, like, if you ever have any questions, like let me know. I'm not going to push the topic, but I mean, and I think it's everyone kind of finds their path at the right time in life. But I would say if you're curious, just getting into the military, I think honestly the Coast Guard is an awesome branch. I was, like I said, gung-ho other branches. I'm not a recruiter and all that stuff, but my brother's buddy, who was an OCS Marine, who's MARSOC now, I was asking him because I was like, who's someone who I know is going to be like an expert on their branch and they're not going to bullshit me. And he was like, he actually was the one who was like, dude, join the Coast Guard. Yeah. And I never really taken it seriously. I always considered the Coast Guard with due respect, but never considered joining. And it's been awesome. It's been like an opportunity of a lifetime. And doing this and being able to kind of have this interaction has been awesome because, again, like my fellow crew members down in Florida when I was there, and people like BM2 Dozier, BM on Qual, they're not going to stand up and say anything. And at a certain point, like someone has to, otherwise we don't get paid. Right. So that's what I love doing, what I do in the Coast Guard.
And one, that's awesome. I'm sold. Again, sign me up right now. Two, speaking of petty officers and class Dozier, she is the 15th woman out of about 580 surfmen. She's the 15th woman to ever achieve that level. And we were asking about like, what are some of the things you've done? And I feel like we both felt like she was being pretty humble. Do you have anything more to share about her?
I would say, so the surfman community, as you talked about in that interview and stuff, I believe it's been around for about 150 years.
Mhm.
So they've been qualifying people as surfmen for 150 years, give or take. I forget what year was actually kind of created. And I think we're approaching 600 surfmen now qualified. To say that you're the 15th female to ever do that is, in my opinion, a pretty, for us, it's kind of like in the Army, talk about like women going through the Rangers or something like that, right? It's like, it's comparable for us. It's the highest
the special forces of the Coast Guard.
On search and rescue, as far as that mission of the Coast Guard, there are, deployable, military entities of the Coast Guard in other aspects. As far as the search and rescue boat forces side of things, as compared to aviation, right? That's kind of a different world with rescue swimmers and stuff.
Yeah.
But that's boat operators. I mean, and again, I'm going to just sing their praises because they won't. The vessels that they go out and say like, yeah, we went out and got that, they're oftentimes like well over 100 feet long, weigh hundreds of tons with, covered in ice or have like tons of crab or whatever catch on them, and they're flooding and there's 12 people on board and they're in like 25-foot seas. So to tow that vessel and to navigate a storm of whatever level, it requires a lot of skill, a lot of seamanship, a lot of teamwork. And it's not something you just go out and do. It takes literally years of training to be able to, and that's millions of dollars and hundreds of lives like every year.
Yeah.
Saved. So, she's the 15th woman to ever do it. And I think that's a pretty amazing thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
There's so many different aspects that I just had no idea. This is fascinating. Is there anything else that you want to say or share about the Coast Guard, stuff people might not know, or anything else you want to put out there?
I know I can ramble, so I'm not going to go on too long.
Quickly, that's podcasting, man. Ramble away.
To give a little love also to BM on Qual. And I don't know if you mentioned this or whatever in your interview with him, but he recently received the Department of Homeland Security Secretary's Award for Valor. It was actually a case, me being the keyboard communications warrior that I am. I wrote the press release about it. So I remember getting the call at 4 a.m. being like, hey, station in Quinta Bay, had this search and rescue case. And so the next day I called him to be like, let me get the facts from the word of mouth. Turns out, essentially, it was during historic wildfires in the area to the point where we launched a helicopter.
And this is out in Yaquina Bay.
Yeah, nearby there.
Okay.
I forget the exact location. It's by a state park.
Okay.
So essentially there was, I believe it was about 38-foot long commercial fishing vessel with one person on board breaking apart in the surf. They had lost engine power, was literally being broken apart by waves like under this guy's feet.
And those waves are no joke out there.
I think if I recall, they're like 10 to 12 foot breaking surf. So not like boulders, like 10 to 12 foot walls of water. He's out there by himself, called Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. Coast Guard responds. We had a helicopter, an MH-65 Dolphin from Air Station North Bend. This is me writing the details in the press release. Right? Take off, and there were historic wildfires in the area where there was zero visibility and the air quality was so bad that there were implications for the actual machinery of the helicopter. So they had the RTB, return to base. So our typical kind of fast response, get there, get them off the boat. It's RTB, we're grounded. We had lifeboats like that they would typically be on, right? Try to get to them, but due to shoaling and so on, they could not get there. Two different types of boats could not get to this guy to rescue him. The only other way to get to this guy to save his life was for BM1 Qual and a crew, a team, to drive to the nearest point of the state park beach, get out of the car in full gear, ran, I think, like 2 miles on the shoreline with 500 feet of line in tow to get out there. And actually, he's not a rescue swimmer, mind you. I think, I'm not going to speak for BM1, but I'm pretty sure he was a competitive swimmer like in high school or something. He multiple attempts to swim out to this guy who was at least like 100 yards offshore, which might not seem that far. But it was also an extreme current. So you're
and in 10 to 12 foot surf. Right.
Right. So it took him multiple tries. Essentially, he got out there, got the guy, had fastened that line to him, and his crew pulled them back to shore. And anecdotally speaking, when they got back to shore, EMS was there, and he refused service so that they could attend to this guy, and coughing up seawater and all the whole nine. So,
and if you've ever I've told the story on ZBT before, but one time I went night surfing off the Oceanside Pier, and I was way too far out, and these giant waves came. I wasn't prepared for it, and I almost drowned. I had to, by the time I got to the beach, I was literally so exhausted. I was crawling. I was grabbing onto the sand and crawling out.
It's scary.
People don't realize it's like when you watch a fight, you don't realize how exhausting it is till you're in one. You're like, oh
yeah,
I just did one swing and I can't breathe anymore. Like
Right.
it's one of those things that is so exhausting. And so to put that into perspective for what he did is absolutely incredible, to go in not just once, but multiple times to try and get the guy and to actually get him. That is, that's remarkable.
In my opinion, I say we, talk about all the military branches, right? They're like, people do extraordinary things and they don't ever mention it. Like you just ask him, can you tell me a cool story about, some rescue you've done or something like that? And like a month ago, he received this award and he told some other story of whatever. So it's like, you're not going to get it. It's like pulling teeth. And again, I'll be the asshole who like sits here and like sings their praises, because it gets to a point, especially in the Coast Guard, where we're just like, we kind of get forgotten a lot. They deserve the recognition and the kudos, in my opinion. And it's not just like we deserve to be recognized. It's also like, again, the implications of funding and things like that, that's the difference maker. That essentially I'll sit here and be the jerk who is hard for the guard, as we say, right? But there's a reason for it. It's not just blind. It's because we need to.
The public needs to know what all you do, and so that you guys can get the support that you need. And how do you go about that then? How do you say, like, excuse us, we need more funding. Our ice boat is 50 years old and people like rely on it to survive in the winter. Like, I mean, I don't know if you even know how that process goes.
This is it. It's organic.
Support.
Again, like we don't have a lot of those recruiting dollars and advertising. So we just kind of, a good example is, it's called the Narco Knocker. It was the video that Coastie banged on the submarine that kind of went viral,
I remember it.
Right. So
that was cool as hell. Yeah.
But no one knew that until then. Right. So taking strategic advantage of those opportunities to be like, hey, this is something we do, but not being like, not being a jerk about it, I guess, but maybe it would behoove us to actually be a jerk about it, right? And kind of go
permanently strap a GoPro to Dozier and Qual.
Dude, I've been pushing for it. I've been pushing for we have standardized cameras on our helos, on the helicopter, like on the hoist, so that the whole thing it's standardized and it's part of their debrief after the mission to send us the video. That's not a part of the boat forces thing. It's also hard to kind of like aim to a point of focus off a boat. But anyway, again, to answer your question, it's organic. It's an effort by us to kind of just get the conversation started. So to that point, again, thank you so much for having me on. But
everybody tag the DOD and ask for more funding for the coast.
Yeah, damn it. Right. I guess just a couple quick plugs. It is, National Safe Boating Week. So thanks for doing this, because it makes me look real good. Like, man.
Let's go.
With that though, I will be a little corny and say like well over, I think 85%, 86% of the water related deaths are people not wearing life jackets. It's corny. It's like riding your bike, wear a helmet when you're riding, like wear a friggin' life jacket, man.
Yeah.
Like I can't tell you, like,
especially kids,
how many people.
Put your kids in life jackets.
There's other points about like bow riding is something that I see, and I just like, like when someone's just cruising, right? It's actually kind of more dangerous when you're just kind of cruising. Having your kids like dangle their toes off the front of your boat, they fall over the boat goes over them. What's behind the boat? A propeller spinning really fast, a blade. These are the things that are just, we giggle and we laugh, but it's like, no one wants to see these things.
Right. Yeah.
Also to be prepared, have this is me doing my Coastie thing, right?
Do it, man.
Messages in.
I'm here for it. We're going into Memorial Day weekend. Everybody's hitting their boats.
For real.
Everyone's boozing it up out there. They need to hear it.
Yeah. Don't drink in boats. The same thing as driving. You're not allowed to drink in boat. You'd think that there's no roads, right? So it's actually kind of harder to figure out like where you're going on a boat, and like always be looking around you, because people coming from, obey the rules of the road, don't drink and drive, drink in boats. And other aspects too, in the Pacific Northwest where I'm at, in Seattle, we do a lot of inland search and rescue, like hikers and stuff like that are people literally like falling off cliffs or getting down ravines where.
Oh, I didn't know you do inland. I didn't know.
Yeah, well, we get the call from a lot of.
Might as well help out. You're all over the place.
Yeah, right. But I'd say just like whether you're on the water or inland, like know your limit, bring the right gear, like be prepared, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like our whole motto is semper paratus, always ready. Like be prepared for emergency. If you're going somewhere, you're not going to have a cell phone connection offshore or in some national forest somewhere, like have a satellite phone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like be able to call. We're going to do our best to come and get you, but you need to be able to tell us you're gone. Another aspect is file what we call a float plan, like tell people where you're going, especially when you're going to be back. And if you're in I forget, there's recent legislation, it's a smaller vessel, wear a safety clip. So it's like if you fall overboard, if you're out there alone in particular, your boat will stop, because it happens all the time. People fall overboard, whether they're rigging their fishing pole or something, their boat keeps going and they're
stuck.
gone.
Yeah.
We'll search for days, like thousands of miles, but it's a big ocean, right? So just be safe. I would just say, if you do have any questions or curiosity about the Coast Guard, just Google it. I've burned everyone's ears off here. So thank you for the opportunity to come on. This has been great. And appreciate the show, and everyone be safe this weekend and move forward for the summertime.
Thanks for coming. This scratched my itch. I had so many questions about the Coast Guard, and I feel like this, now I know.
Yeah.
And where can people, Coast Guard has its Instagram and Twitter and all that stuff. And like, where can people, hey, I want to check out a little more. What can they do?
My buddies would have been like, how did you not plug our Instagram? So we actually just got authorization to start an Instagram for my specific district. So we're fairly new to the game, but we're getting a lot of posting content out there and stuff. It's at USCG Pacific NW. So USCG Pacific NW. And then on Facebook and Twitter, it's US Coast Guard Pacific Northwest. That's like kind of my unit. That's Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Montana. Actually, it's part of our AOR.
And I will say, I just followed it, and the first picture that pops up, an extremely adorable dog on the beach wearing a life jacket. Let's go. I'm sold.
That's my counterpart. Shout out to Dio P3 Caballero. That's her pup. We're promoting wear your life jacket, right? So that's kind of the whole effort there.
Perfect.
But and then just follow the Coast Guard. Again, like getting the algorithm, creating that engagement. It helps us to kind of put out the message that ultimately will create public knowledge, influence on representatives, senators, congressmen, congresspersons, and it helps us out. So appreciate it for sure.
So follow your local coastie stations, give them some love.
For sure. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Michael. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. But you're welcome on the show anytime. Anytime there's a big Coast Guard story and you think it's ZBT worthy, hit us up. And we'll put it out
or if
there.
you guys come across anything crazy or whatever, want some insight, let me know. Be happy to hop on. Yeah, always.
All right. And if I'm ever out on my Aunt Peg's pontoon boat and things go awry, I'm calling you personally.
DM me. Hit me up. Yeah.
Help me manage the PR for this crisis that we're in. Help me.
I'll call the air station. They'll send a helo.
All right. Hell yeah. Sweet. Well, thank you so much for your time.
All right. Thanks, Kate. Appreciate it.
Before we get to save rounds and alibis, I forgot to tell you one thing, and I'm an idiot. I can't believe we forgot to tell you about it. It's a long weekend. It's Memorial Day weekend. You're going out to start your summer. Maybe you're going to go out and have a good time with your friends, because that's what all of our fallen friends would want us to do. Maybe you're going to go have a little sexual intercourse, and you say, you know what, chaps, this old penis of mine, this old ding-a-ling that I'm dragging around, this thing that I got on my body, it's not as hard as it used to be. So what I'm going to need you to do is get your Get Roman swipe, swipe that thing on there, and you're going to be good to go. You're going to be fucking in no time. That thing is going to be rock diddly hard, my friends, and you're going to enjoy it. She's going to enjoy it, or he's going to enjoy it, or they're going to enjoy it. Everybody has the ability to enjoy it if you go to GetRoman.com. Use a promo code 0 to get $10 off. You're welcome.
Yeah. So I learned a lot about the Coast Guard that I didn't know.
You know how else you could have learned a lot about the Coast Guard?
What?
If you watched The Guardian, starring Ashton Kutcher and Kevin Costner.
I forgot to ask him about that.
Yeah.
Damn it. Of course I did.
That's rude.
All right, let's move on to round number 4. This was big news, and it's not 1,000% done yet. It's just the recommendations that happened. But over the last couple months, I guess really it started about a year ago, maybe a little bit longer.
Yes.
Time all folks together now for me.
It really
big
does.
time. But they wanted to change the base names, and now they have some recommendations, right, Kate?
They certainly do. The name Fort Bragg and the North Carolina base's commemoration of a Confederate officer could soon be a thing of the past after a long-expected recommendation to rename it Fort Liberty was unveiled Tuesday.
Now, I want to ask you guys a question. Why do you think it took that long for this to come up? Like, does this generation just care more about the naming of things or the meaning behind it?
Well,
because it seems like in the past they didn't give a fuck about it.
No, but I just think it's the advent of the internet and how much more readily available information is, I think, and more in the forefront, because I was in the Army and I didn't know who Bragg was. Like, I never learned about him and never thought maybe I should look into who this fort is named after. So I
do know
see.
when there is moments where it's named after somebody that did great things, you do look into it.
Yes.
Like for me, when camp in Okinawa, it's called Camp Smelly D. Butler. It's all the bases. Right. So you're like, oh, what'd Smelly Butler do? Well, it turns out it's a bunch of shit. Like, he did some awesome stuff. So I think that there is that. And you're right. Without the advent of the internet, if you're driving by Fort Hood, you're probably just thinking the city's name's Hood or whatever.
Something innocuous like that.
Right. I never.
And
looked
I think that there is a certain element of trust in the American ideals of what we espouse to be American ideals, that you wouldn't do this. But to me, it's just another step of, well, maybe we're teaching our kids the wrong be honest with them. Like, we were some assholes. We did wrong shit. There's absolutely nothing wrong with, as a country, to identify the things that you did wrong in the past and say we're going to work to...
Yeah, I think too often as a country, we're
great.
we're so proud.
Bad.
We're so proud that we're afraid to admit sometimes, maybe that wasn't that great.
Yeah, like, you don't have to think your NFL team's going 17-0. Sometimes they actually are 3-13.
That's true. Fort Hood, Texas would become Fort Cavazos after an Army hero in the Korean and Vietnam Wars. Fort Benning, Georgia would be Fort Moore, we know after Hal Moore. 6 other bases across the country would get new names under the proposal by an independent commission created by Congress to scrap those chosen to honor troops who fought for the South and slavery during the Civil War. The naming commission's recommendations come after a year of work and visits to base communities, but the proposed names must now go to Congress and be approved by Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. The changes aren't expected to be finalized until 2024, and a report of the renaming of other property like ships, that'll be turned over to lawmakers in October.
Why the hell does it have to take until 2024?
Oh, it's
another
the
year and a half.
They just...
Like, you can't just decide, like, we should probably change those. Here's the new names. Cool. Let's sit in a room for 20 minutes and hash this out.
I don't get it, man.
That's ridiculous.
I understand that there's a lot of things that go into changing a big name, like all the different branding, all the different paperwork.
Sure, stuff.
But you're the fucking United States military. You can figure it out.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy. Anyways, a lot of these proposals, and it's just but like, it looks like this is finally actually going to
so there's a
happen.
bunch of proposals. If you want to see what the actual names are, go look it up yourself. We're not going through a list.
Yeah, there's a great list here, and they're all named after all these amazing people. But so that's why when the first one I saw was Liberty.
Except for Fort Liberty.
I was perplexed to think, okay, are they just going to come up with all these weird words to call the forts? And then I read the article, and it seems like every other... So that is what doesn't make sense to me. Every other single one is named after somebody who is a very accomplished person in our military that is someone who has a connection to that particular base. I need to know how they landed on Liberty for Bragg, because... You got the 82nd Airborne. You have all of our special operations community. There's no shortage of individuals at Bragg who served at Bragg that you could name it after. I need to know how they landed on Liberty.
Yeah.
And also the name for Fort Rucker, Alabama, Fort Novosel, after Chief Warrant Officer 4 Michael Novosel Sr., an Army aviator who, during the Vietnam War, who flew 2,543 extraction missions and rescued more than 5,500 wounded soldiers.
Yeah.
Dude.
Much more deserving than a Confederate officer.
Absolutely. Just think about that, though. Like, 2,543? How many tours to Vietnam are you doing?
I mean, either that or you're doing just...
Or
either way, it's a lot.
Right.
Like,
no matter how you slice it.
There's no
even
short,
multiple tours, you're still doing multiple missions a day. Because also, too, with a pilot, you can't just be, like, round the clock going in and doing extraction missions. That's impressive.
And it really puts... Like, after talking with Jack McCain about some of the issues that were going to be had when the Taliban was trying to use our helicopters that we left behind. And he was like, the deterioration rate in helicopters is so low that they constantly have to have work done.
Yes.
And so he did all that stuff. So it was basically, as soon as the helicopter was ready, he was ready.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he was ready to go. All right, let's move on to round number 5, which today is going to be brought to you by our good friends at BetterHelp. Life can be overwhelming, and many people are burned out without even knowing it. Symptoms can include feeling a lack of motivation, helplessness, trapped in your environment, detached, fatigued, and so much more. I mean, I've, honest to God, been burned out with the news over the last week.
Yes.
Like, I don't know how you look at anything that's happening in the country and not get overwhelmed. That's why it's the exact right time for you to begin your therapy journey. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions for your therapist, so you don't have to be anyone on camera if you don't want to. Because a lot of people I know, like, if you get into these spots where you're super depressed, you don't want to leave your room, you don't want to leave your house, you don't want to leave any of that stuff. And so they understand that barrier and they try to make it a little bit better. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp, and Zero Blog 30 listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/0. That's BETTERHELP.com/0. Round number 5, what do we got?
Well, that was it.
That was round number 5.
That was the show.
Because Kate's round was round number 4.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah.
And here we are.
That's right. All right. So I did want to spend a little bit of time talking about the tragedy that happened in Uvalde, Texas. And we did a little bit on Podfathers too. And it's getting to the point where you say, I don't want to talk about these issues. We can't talk about these issues. It's too much to talk about these issues. But it's not. And I told Clem today, and I really believe it, I feel like America is on the path where you're fighting for the soul of the nation. Like, really and truly, that with as much division, as much as the political strife is on both sides of the aisle, and how much vitriol is placed for the other side by the side that you're on, I feel like there's certain things that we absolutely have a responsibility for. And there's this notion that voting doesn't change anything and that people don't want it. It's always going to be the same. 88% of Americans want common sense gun reform.
Right.
I don't think that we are at the place where nothing can ever be done. I think the power of the voting box is important. I think that with women's issues that are approaching and the possible overturning with Roe versus Wade, and I especially think it on issues such as gun control, that it doesn't have to be all or nothing.
You're right. And I think so often that's what we see. We see people go to the extremes, go to their respective corners, and you can almost predict what people are going to say in terms of their argument for or against. But when you say that number, 88%, that tells me the vast majority of this country is ready to meet somewhere in the middle and figure something out. Because I don't think anybody wants to see these instances continue to occur in this country. It's nauseating, it's disgusting, it's saddening, and I hadn't heard that description before, but the idea that we are searching for our soul as a country may be very poignant at this time.
And Kate, Cash is only a year old. Have you seen a look of abject terror on his face yet, where he's like scared or doesn't recognize that yet, really?
No. Well, yes. I mean, about babies, they hear a loud noise or
no,
they
I mean,
hear whatever.
just like that picture, and I say that to say, as a parent, whenever you see your kid and they're fearful, like see anything, like going to Disney World and the ride might be a little bit too high. When you see the actual pureness of fear on your child's face, it is gutting. Like, even if it's something...
And that's when you're right next to them
and
to
it's
comfort
something
them.
small. For me, and I tried to stay away from as many of the reaction videos and the interviews with parents as I possibly could, but I read in one area that it was 90 minutes. That was nearly 90 minutes but while they were waiting. And I thought about the terror that must have been across their faces.
Yeah, we can't continue on this way. We simply cannot. Shooting after shooting after shooting after shooting, and it's children who are dying, and something absolutely has to change. I do not believe all these politicians saying everything but guns. They're pointing out everything. It's the fatherlessness in America. It's that we're not praying enough. It's that this and that and the other thing. And the thing they won't say is that it is guns. It's an AR-15, which absolutely shreds a body apart at a rapid pace. There's absolutely no need for it. And there are people who have sold their souls to these gun companies who I know any sane, responsible gun owner will say, this has gone too far. It must stop, and it must stop. I don't know how many more kids have to die. I do not know how a parent survives after something like this has happened to their child. And like you said, like knowing what their final moments were like, how can anyone think of that and look at the cameras and say anything other than we need big time gun reform? I do not understand it. There's no debating that with me. That is a fact. You cannot look at the facts and say anything else. I don't think that's being left or right. I think that is just saying, I don't want any more kids to die. in their classrooms. Like that's like,
and my heart
there's
breaks
no
for
debate.
those
That's it.
kids as well, because I don't know why it was this one, but I came to the realization for all those children who survived and now the PTS that they're going to deal with the rest of the time they're in school. And I don't think any of us ever had to worry going to school that something was going to happen. And that's a very real concern for children nowadays.
Well,
and not
we
just
were
in that
dealing
school,
with
but
bomb
any
threats
school.
Since Columbine, we have been dealing, like, ever since, like, we've been dealing with this for decades now with absolutely no change except that it's becoming more frequent and
It's
more
actually
horrific.
gotten less, because in 2004 is when there was a law that went out of practice, I guess, whatever the fuck you
Oh,
call
yes.
that is.
Go ahead.
And in 2004, you weren't, before 2004, from 1994 to 2004, you were only allowed to buy magazines that had 10 rounds. That was the highest. Anything over had to be written on it for law enforcement purposes only. Now you can buy all kinds of crazy shit. And the 203 that you're talking about, it's designed to rip your body apart.
Right.
These weapons aren't designed to go through. The 203 is specifically designed. That's why you don't use it hunting deer, because it would destroy the meat.
Right.
Like once it enters, it's designed to bounce around the body and inflict massive carnage. And so you're not even allowed to hunt animals with it.
They said a normal round will go through, and say you survive and you get
Or
taken
not,
to the
you're not
hospital.
allowed. You shouldn't, because it'll destroy the meat. is what
It'll
I-
take a regular round, like a M9. It'll take 1 or 2 surgeries. They said if you get shot with an AR-15, the way the round goes through you, it could take 10, 11, 12, 13 surgeries to fix just one round from that. And picture, I mean,
And I had no idea. When I got shot with the 7.62 with the AK-47, the trauma surgeon said, well, at least it wasn't one of ours.
yeah.
Like because
A 5.62.
the 7.62 just goes straight through.
Or 5.56. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you're
Which-
right.
That's the same thing.
Yeah. Sorry. No, it's so goddamn annoying too. All these politicians to just say the same tired shit over and over and over again. And I was reading, Dan Pfeiffer wrote a blog, and he was commenting on Beto O'Rourke's, what he did at that press conference with Governor Abbott. And he said, I don't know if that's right. I don't know if that's wrong, but it's something else. It's something that is outside the norm, that at least maybe people are talking about it. I don't know if that was the forum or the way to go about it, but we can't just, roll out the thoughts and prayers, roll out the I'm sorries, roll out the I'm thinking of you, and then a week later, resume normal life like nothing happened and have nothing change. Because if we don't, as we've seen, if you look at the statistics, they will continue to happen.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's because people lack courage, like the politicians involved, but the lobbying behind it and all those things. It's just like it's Beto. I think what no one could disagree with what Beto was saying, like that we have to do something here. It's just this bullshit focus on decorum,
Right.
Like, and it seems to me that's always the argument when something like the overturning of Roe versus Wade. Like if you want to establish a law right away to stop something from happening, you can.
Oh,
They stopped
absolutely.
it. I mean, within 48 hours of people being at a Supreme Court justice's house protesting outside, Congress from both houses, both chambers of Congress, passed a law that was against the law to do that. They did it in 48 hours because somebody was screaming outside of Brett Kavanaugh and Clarence Thomas's fucking house. There's a elementary school littered with dead children. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. We can't keep
and
doing
I'm
this.
so tired of people like Ted Cruz saying shit like, this is the freest country in the world. It's where people come to live. It's number 25. Like, we're not the freest country in the world. We're not economically, social. We don't have the freedoms that we espouse forever. Like, we have to get that back. Like, the freedoms that the government from state and federal are trying to take from the average citizen while we're doing it under the blanket of patriotism is absolute horseshit.
Yeah. I think we rest on our laurels a little too much.
And those laurels were false. That's a false thing too. Like when we go back, oh, it was this. It was. No, it wasn't. It's never been that. And I think that it's, as I cannot imagine being a person of color and hearing about the greatness that was always there, knowing that your fucking family can't even drink from the same water fountain.
Yeah.
That they can't go to the same restaurants. America is great because of the ideals of what America is supposed to be. Not what it currently is, not what it ever has been, but what we are going to be. The future has got to be placed on where are we right now and how do we get to the next spot. You can't do it by looking in the past, no matter what industry you are, especially as a country. It's bullshit.
And a country
People
that
have got to stop
refuses to
saying
put
that.
its children first is not going anywhere good.
Yeah. And to get to that future, it takes work.
Yeah.
You don't just wake up every day like everything's great, everything's grand. Clearly it's not. Turn on the news. Clearly it's not. So we have to work every day, and we can't just get to a point one day and be like, all right, cool, great job, guys. Everything's perfect. It's never going to be perfect. It's always going to take work. We're going to have to continue to strive and continue to get better. Otherwise, we're going to continue to have stories like this flash across our screens.
And it's sad, like this Memorial Day weekend, and we usually do a big show like going into Memorial Day weekend, but I can't think of anything that honors veterans more, like people that gave their life for freedom and liberty, to ensure that the next group, the next generation of Americans don't have to secure that liberty with bullet holes ravaging their bodies. Sound their treat.